more and more comes up, and it just, makes folks like CISOs more nervous. And then, in conferences, people are thinking about this, and, eventually it just becomes kind of unthinkable to not solve this problem.
Welcome to UpTech Report. This is our applied tech series. UpTech Report is sponsored by TerraLeap. Learn how to leverage the power of video at terraleap.io. Today, I am joined by my guest, Ian Coe, who's based in San Francisco, California. He's the co-founder and CEO of Tonic. Welcome, Ian. Good to have you on, man.
Hey, great to meet you. Thank you.
Now, Tonic, if I understand correctly, your whole focus is mimicking production data to create safe, useful, de-identified data for QA testing development. And the idea that you could automatically create mock data, but preserve the same key characteristics of that secure data set. So developers, data scientists, salespeople, you can all use that without breaching privacy. And privacy is a big issue these days. I actually love on your website, you say the fake data company. To help me understand, Ian, where did this begin for you guys? What was the problem that you saw and you set out to solve?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, that's kind of a funny slogan that we've been toying with. The more formal kind of thing that we talk about is synthetic data, obviously. And really this problem actually came about through some of the challenges that we saw in previous jobs, which is common for a lot of startups, especially in the B2B space. For example, for me, I was working at Palantir on this project, and, I was at this big bank and trying to get a bunch of things done, and we got a few errors. So I emailed those to some developers and said, hey, how do I fix this? And, their first response was, can you send me the data? And the answer was, of course not. So, what we ended up doing is making fake versions of that data using, just Python, other manual tools. And so fast forward a few years, me and my co-founders were thinking about all the different things that we could kind of take on. And this kind of jumped to the forefront for us as something that would be really helpful for the world, good for the world, and actually, really important and valuable for businesses.
Data is essential, obviously, as you're developing, especially creating and testing new products, but creating it easily or not using existing data for privacy reasons is a concern. Help me understand the shift in mindset that someone has to go in saying, will this actually work? What's some of the things that you've seen some pushback from people before they test and use your product that are is this actually, how easy is it? Does the data actually really mimic it? Does it synthesize it well?
Yeah. So, that's definitely a concern. So there's kind of three things that you can do if you want to solve this problem, right? Or not be affected by this problem. You can essentially give all your developers access to production, and that has significant security implications, that runs counter to a lot of the principles set out by, regulations like GDPR, CCPA, certainly is a violation of things like SOC 2. That's one approach you can take. And, it's something that most companies or a lot of companies do because it's just, it's challenging to solve this problem. The other thing you can kind of do is you can lock everything down and, make it really, really hard to get access to data, but that really slows down your development team. The other thing you can do is attempt an internal solution. And we see a lot of customers do this as well. And the challenge there is, as you said, getting the data quality right, actually being confident that what you've done protects the data. And then also just handling all the idiosyncrasies and all the sort of blocking and tackling that, we spend a lot of time at Tonic trying to solve. So when data updates, if you have a schema change, do you propagate that right away? And, do you have really large data systems? Do you replicate everything? Do you just grab a subset of it? How do you create multiple instances for different scenarios for developers versus testers? So all of that, sort of painful data infrastructure we've sort of pushed out of, sort of the forefront for folks solving this problem.
This concept of creating data that's not real, it's not necessarily new. You're not the first one to solve it. Help me understand, how are you guys different from other options out there, like maybe creating just synthetic data, and how do you approach it differently?
Yeah, I think one of the big differentiators between us and I think there's actually kind of two styles of folks that we see out in the market. There's kind of some older, larger companies that have test data management solutions. And I think the big difference between us and them is, We're a much more modern platform. We integrate directly into your existing infrastructure. Time to value is much, much lower. Our customers are getting, sort of solving their problem within 30 days. Whereas I think a lot of those solutions are more like 6 months plus and a big, deep engagement with a lot of pro serve. Then the other style, I think, of folks that we see out in the market are folks really focused on kind of the purest academic problem of synthetic data, which is, how can I take a table and then replicate that table and then have it, be valid according to all these statistical tests. And that's something we can do, but we've really focused on the enterprise data problem of databases and making sure that not only can you, do that kind of table comparison, but actually transform the entire graph of a database and have that be valid too. So you can actually run your app on top of databases, since that's what most apps run on.
Help me just understand the difference between synthesized mimic data versus mock data. Like, what's the difference there?
So, these are actually debates we've had internally. What is mass data? What is synthesized data? And it gets kind of, it gets nuanced and kind of weird. So imagine you had a table of names and you replaced all those names with a dictionary of fake names. Is that synthesized data? It kind of is, right? Like, it's net new data that's completely detached from the underlying, but has most of the properties. And we even do things in our product, like make sure that there's a one-to-one mapping if you want it. We call it consistency, and we can preserve that across data sources, which is sort of what I was getting at, those enterprise problems. But or you could call that mass data, right? Like, you just took some values and then replaced them with other values. It's sort of like an advanced mask. But typically when people talk about mass data, they're really thinking of really trivial operations, like taking some data and like replacing it with a bunch of X's or nulling it all out. And that's when you start really completely destroying the utility of the data and making it hard to, be an effective developer.
What is like the absolute useful part of the data that has to be maintained, and when someone's using it, and you need to make sure that the product is delivering for you guys?
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, the bar for most of our customers is they can open their application, it works, their tests pass. So that's kind of the bar for, developers. There's a lot of things that go into that. The main thing I would say is the graph of the database. The structure and relationships in the database have to be preserved, and that's what we spend a lot of time making sure that we do.
And anyone's data you can use, I mean, and be able to mimic and create new content. Is it just, yeah, just bring it, we can make it happen? Or are there any variables or things that it only, like, it requires you to have to do something different each time?
Uh, so we focused on relational data to start with. And that's something that, if you look at our website, you can see the list of sources that we support. It's pretty extensive. I think we cover most of the common relational databases. I mean, there's always things out there, but yeah, any relational data, no problem. We are about to release our document store product. So that's going to be something that I think, further opens up the types of data we can process. We already process things like JSON and XML, but we're going to, go a level further and make that, really first class for folks.
If you had to give a word of advice to a developer who's working with data right now, or even research analysts who are having to work with data in today's environment, especially where we're headed with privacy and the need to use data smartly, what would you give? What would you share as far as a word of wisdom?
I'd say, focus on what your job is and, let us take care of the painful stuff for you. I think that's sort of the big thing is, obviously anything's possible with code, right? There's a lot of great developers out there. They can solve problems. But, would you rather work on some data infrastructure stuff that, took, I think we have a pretty good engineering team, took us a couple years to figure out, or would you rather just, do your job, move your top line for your company? So I'd say, just, it can be a kind of a fun challenge, but,
Pick your battle.
don't
Like,
pick your battle. Exactly. Exactly.
Where you need to
That's,
spend
yeah,
your
very
time.
well said. Yeah.
Now, speaking of just a moment going back to the regulatory around privacy, I'm curious, what's your perspective on where we're headed, and will it get more difficult around using actual data and the need to create mimicked or synthesized data?
We've seen a real shift in the perception of this problem since we went out to market. And I think a lot of that is regulatory. Some of that is also just, I think the market recognizing this is a really important challenge. But yeah, if you look at the number of people that just accept that, you have to do something about that, it's way higher than when we first started talking to people about this problem. And, if you look at what's in a lot of these regulations, it's a little ambiguous. Like GDPR, you're subject to fines if you breach, unless your data is substantially resistant to reverse engineering. But they don't actually tell you how to do that. So we fall back on something called differential privacy, which is, that's a whole nother discussion. But really, what it comes down to is, as I think these things get out into the market, and then there's Schrems too, and, all these other things, more and more comes up, and it just, makes folks like CISOs more nervous. And then, in conferences, people are thinking about this, and, eventually it just becomes kind of unthinkable to not solve this problem.
You're saying basically just getting harder to, or more difficult to do it without having a solution in place to mimic it and create synthesized data because of the external crackdown.
It's that, and I think the other thing that is, as we continue to advance the brand of Tonic and explain what we do, I think we help folks understand that it's possible. We've taken something that might have been a multi-month or multi-year engineering effort, and we've condensed it down to 30 days. So if this is, a lot of CISOs we talk to say, yeah, I've been worried about this for 10 years. I'm glad someone's finally solving this. So it's kind of one of those things that the timing for people's concern about it is really high. And then in addition, it's also been something that a lot of folks have been really concerned about, but there just hasn't been a great answer to.
So it's the tipping point, getting to the point where the need is only increasing, and the ease of use to be able to create it is increasing as well, and we're meeting together.
Yep, exactly.
What are you most excited about in the space? Maybe it's an upcoming feature or where you guys are headed that will only make this better or easier for developers and CISOs and research analysts.
I mean, I think the thing that, we're going to continue to push on is just really driving down the time it takes to get that initial data set that works for your team. And to do that, we're going to be pushing out more automation, doing more things that you can do in the product today with some manual work, making that, happen automatically for you. Additionally, like I said, supporting more sources, becoming more resilient to, idiosyncratic data. All of those things make it so eventually, the dream is one day you point at your database, you click a button, you walk away, and half an hour later you have exactly what you need and you ship it to your team. So I think that's kind of, that's what our sort of North Star is. Yeah.
Yes. Just
absolutely.
Eventually getting to where you said click a button and then boom, you got your mimic data or synthesized data that you can just start using.
And, who knows if we'll ever actually get all the way there, that I think it's, to some, but I think when I think about what I would like for our customers, that's what I'd like.
Can you share just some use cases or examples of companies you're working with and how this is it in play, how it works?
Yeah, totally. So, I mean, we're working with a ton of customers. We have a bunch, you can go to our website and see some of the logos. We got folks like eBay, Flexport, a bunch of sort of SMB style customers as well. And I think, the main thing that we see consistently across all these customers is that they're supplying their dev teams with the data from Tonic. And, for some of the larger customers, that might be petabytes of data, where they're taking petabytes of data, making it, using our subsetting technology to make it a digestible size, and then protecting that data before they ship it off to developers. And so there's a huge lift from that, in terms of just the efficiency they get, being able to depend on a continuous pipeline of, useful data.
For the environment that we're in, for developers, the need for data isn't going to decrease of being able to develop and create content around it. But you said the ease of use is going to be the biggest thing. What can you speak to as kind of the future of technology in like the next near term, next 2-3 years, or even a little bit beyond that? What kind of tech predictions can you make of where we'll see technology going and the use cases for mimicking data, need for data in developing that?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a few things that I think a few bets that we have. And I think this is also, potentially, advice I would give to anyone doing a startup in, the data spaces. I guess one thing is don't be afraid of on-prem. It's a lot easier than it used to be. Um, I think, we can install in under an hour, really reliably. So, that improved over time. The first install was not an hour, but we got it there. I think there's just a lot more tooling to make that possible. The other thing I would say is don't count out relational databases. A lot of folks go to more complex setups, but if you look at sort of Postgres adoption and things like that, and some of the things that they're starting to support, you can do a lot with some of those traditional, boring technologies, I guess you could say.
It's like the boring technologies are the ones that you shouldn't necessarily turn away from. That it actually can help.
Yeah, especially if it's something that's really useful and seems like it's solving the problem. I think for us, especially in our field, being on-prem is extremely important. A lot of our customers do not want to send their data out of their VPC. And so that's something that I think has been hugely important for making our customers feel secure and protected. And I think obviously that style problem changes as you advance your brand, as you become bigger. But certainly as a smaller startup, it's pretty important to make sure your customers feel very confident in what you're doing.
Can you share any more about just kind of your story of your history? Four co-founders, right? So you and three
Mhm.
three others.
Yeah.
Uh,
Um,
yeah. How'd you guys get together, meet, and how did it begin?
so one of the co-founders and I actually we met in middle school. That was Carl. Carl and I actually know each other from middle school. Um, Andrew was my first boss at Palantir, and Adam and I worked together at the same team at Tableau. So three of the founders come from Palantir. Two spent time at Tableau. I realized that's more than, but I'm an overlap. I was at both. So it is four co-founders, but I was at both.
And is it just because of the experience of those Tableau and the other one that you just like you guys saw this issue, as you were saying earlier, that the need for this was arising, and then it just like we got to get together and make this happen?
Yeah, I mean, it was a problem at Tableau as well. I can't tell, I mean, I was a product manager there, and I can't tell you how many times we'd get a defect reported by a customer where they'd strip the data out of the workbook and say, this is a defect. And then we'd ask the customer for their data to help debug it, and they'd say no. And then as a product manager, it's a really hard challenge. I mean, do you tell the customer, hey, we're not going to solve your problem? Or do you then dedicate some engineer and shift your whole roadmap, which also takes away value from customers, so that this engineer can recreate a data set that can hopefully reproduce? And it's not even a guarantee. I mean, the engineer may spend a long time trying to reproduce it, and then after a week say, I can't do it. So I think it's a big challenge. And if we can really make data portable across enterprises and all of these things, I think that's going to greatly accelerate a bunch of different aspects of development, and collaboration between companies.
What where do you see your company in 5 years from now?
So I think, if we look at how folks are using Tonic today, there's a lot of things that they're doing. They're really managing their data in a very first class and thoughtful way. So I think Tonic in 5 years is the place where you go to make sure that your data is handled well. And not only that, it allows you to collaborate between teams and make sure your practices are first class. And we also save you a ton of time on infrastructure. So I think, Tonic becomes it's a synthetic data product today, but I think 5 years from now it's a secure data platform.
I appreciate being able to share kind of the vision and the history of where you guys come from and the challenge of handling data well for data privacy reasons, and just making it easy for developers and teams to be able to make it happen. I'm excited for what you guys are bringing forth. For those that want to learn more, you can head over to tonic.ai and looks like you can book a demo. Is that a good first step that folks can take?
Yeah, we'd love to talk to you, and we keep the process really light.
I love it. All right. Well, thank you again, Ian. Good to have you on, and we'll see you guys next time on the next episode of UpTech Report. Have you seen a company using AI, machine learning, or other technology to transform the way we live, work, and do business? Go to uptechreport.com and let us know.